the void sang with death. In the frozen silence between stars, the Genestealer cult vessel, herald of ascension, drifted like a wound. In reality, its hull scarred by generations of infestation. The ship had wandered too far from the Hive Fleet's whispered guidance, carrying within its corroded bones a congregation of the faithful, waiting for their star gods to return. Captain Patriarch Morghast felt the tremor first, a psychic vibration that scraped against his four-armed consciousness like broken glass. His stolen memories, fragments of the ship's original crew, told him this sector held only empty worlds and stellar graveyards. Yet something pulsed in the dark ahead, ancient and hungry. The cult ship's auger arrays, corrupted by generations of alien touch, detected metallic debris drifting in perfect formation. Too perfect, too deliberate. "Bring us alongside," Morg commanded, his voice a chittering harmony of human words and something deeper. The bridge crew, their bodies twisted by the kiss of the Genestealer strain, obeyed with religious fervour. They had wandered the void for 3 years, seeking signs of their approaching gods. Perhaps this derelict held answers. The object revealed itself as they closed distance, a massive vessel of unfamiliar design, its hull bearing no imperial aquala, no mark of Xenos empires. They knew the metal appeared organic in places, as if grown rather than forged, with structures that curved like ribs and passages that pulsed with bioluminescent veins. Scanner readings showed atmosphere within, and faint energy signatures that suggested life support or something that mimicked it. "Boarding parties," Morghast ordered. The cult warriors gathered in the launch bays, their hybrid forms eager for contact with any intelligence that might herald their star god's arrival. They carried autoguns and mining equipment, tools repurposed for faith and slaughter. The Patriarch's psychic presence washed over them like a blessing, filling their minds with visions of transcendence. The boarding shuttles breached the derelict's hull with practiced ease, cutting through armour that seemed almost alive. Inside, the corridors stretched in impossible geometries, their walls secretreating moisture that reflected the squad's lumens in patterns that hurt to perceive directly. The air tasted of copper and something else. Something that made the cult warriors' stolen human instincts scream warnings their alien masters ignored. Hybrid Sergeant Corvus led the first squad deeper into the vessel's heart, following corridors that seemed to shift when observed peripherally. His four-armed frame moved with predatory grace, borrowed human memories guiding him through what appeared to be a command section. The walls here showed signs of violence, claw marks that followed no human or known Xenos pattern, and stains that defied classification. The first body they found had been human once. The corpse lay crumpled against a bulkhead, its chest cavity burst open from within. Ribs spread like broken wings, revealing an interior that had been hollowed out with surgical precision. Whatever had emerged from this flesh prison had left behind only desiccated remains and the lingering scent of acid. "Report," Morghast's voice whispered through the Vox network, carried by psychic resonance across the dead ship. "One moment, Patriarch," Corvus replied, his borrowed human caution wearing with alien confidence. The squad's gene scanner showed traces of biological activity ahead, concentrated in what appeared to be the vessel's central hub. They advanced through chambers filled with strange machinery, devices that pulsed with the rhythm of a sleeping heart. The attack came without warning. Something dropped from the ceiling behind them, its movement fluid as liquid mercury. The rearguard hybrid scream cut through the Vox network before static consumed it. Corvus spun, his forearms bringing weapons to bear, but saw only shadows and the spreading pool of acid eating through the deck plating. Contact he transmitted. Then the second creature struck. It emerged from the wall itself as if the metal had given birth to nightmare, seventh of biomechanical perfection. Its elongated skull gleaming like polished obsidian. Its body a marriage of organic efficiency and mechanical lethality. The innerpharyngeal jaw shot forward with hydraulic force, punching through the hybrid's carapace armor as if it were parchment. Acidic blood sprayed from the wound, and the creature's own Veet began eating through everything it touched. The squad's autoguns roared, filling the corridor with muzzle flashes and the whine of ricocheting rounds. The creature moved like liquid shadow, each motion calculated for maximum lethality. Its claws, razor-sharp and gleaming with toxic secretions, carved through hybrid flesh with contemptuous ease. When it died, Finally brought down by concentrated fire, its acidic blood ate through 2 deck levels before neutralizing. Corvus stared at the dissolving corpse, his mind struggling to process what he had witnessed. In all the cult's wanderings, in all their encounters with the galaxy's horrors, they had never faced something so perfectly designed for killing. The creature's biology spoke of evolutionary perfection, each adaptation honed by countless generations of predation. Patriarch, he transmitted, his voice tight with something approaching fear. We have found something new. The psychic response carried overtones of hunger and curiosity. Morghast had felt the death screams of his children through the hive bond, tasted their final moments of terror and wonder. Whatever dwelt in this ship represented something unprecedented, a form of life that might rival even the star gods themselves. Continue the search, came the command. Bring me specimens. The remaining squads pressed deeper into the vessel's bowels, following corridors that seemed to pulse with malevolent intelligence. They found more bodies, each one bearing the same distinctive wounds. Chest cavities burst open from within, bones spread like offerings to some dark god. The signs of violence grew more extensive as they advanced, suggesting a running battle that had consumed the entire crew. In what appeared to be the ship's medical bay, they discovered the truth. Stasis pods lined the walls, each one designed to hold a human form. Most stood empty, their occupants long since departed through means that left acid-scarred exit wounds in the reinforced glass, but 3 pods still functioned, their bio-readings showing life signs that defied easy classification. The first pod held a human female, her body swollen with something that moved beneath her skin. As the hybrids watched, her eyes snapped open, pupils dilated with terror and pain. Her mouth opened in a scream that never emerged, and then her chest exploded outward in a spray of blood and viscera. The creature that emerged was smaller than those they had encountered, but no less deadly. It moved with the fluid grace of youth, its elongated skull already showing the distinctive ridges that marked its species. The hybrid warriors opened fire immediately, but the newborn creature was already in motion. It flowed between their shots like liquid mercury, its small frame no impediment to the lethality encoded in its genes. When it died, torn apart by autogun rounds, its acidic blood ate through the medical bay's deck plating and began consuming the support struts below. The second pod revealed similar horrors, and the third showed them something worse, a metamorphosis in progress. The human within had begun changing, his flesh taking on a darker hue, his bone structure elongating in ways that suggested he was becoming something between human and xenomorph. When they destroyed the pod, the hybrid creature that emerged bore characteristics of both species. Its human cunning merged with alien predatory instincts. Corvus felt the first stirrings of genuine fear. His stolen human memories provided no context for what they faced, and his alien heritage offered no comfort. These creatures represented something beyond the usual patterns of the galaxy's predators. They were not content to simply kill. They transformed their victims into weapons, turning the act of reproduction into warfare itself. Patriarch, he transmitted, his voice carrying harmonics of distress that would resonate through the cult's hive mind. We must withdraw. These creatures are not like anything we have encountered. They do not merely kill, they remake. But Morghast's response carried only hunger. Through the psychic link, Corvus felt his master's fascination with these new forms of life. The Patriarch saw potential in the Xenomorphs as adaptive biology, parallels to his own species' methods of infiltration and transformation. Perhaps these creatures could be integrated into the cult's greater purpose, their perfect predatory nature serving the star god's eventual return. Bring me eggs, came the command, heavy with psychic compulsion. Find their source. The star gods will want to see these children of evolution. The order filled Corvus with dread, but the cult's conditioning ran deeper than fear. He led his surviving warriors deeper into the ship, following bio-readings that suggested concentrated life forms ahead. The corridors here showed more extensive modification, their walls taking on an increasingly organic appearance. Resin-like secretions covered every surface, forming structures that served purposes the human mind could not easily comprehend. They found the hive in what had once been the ship's cargo bay. The space had been completely transformed, its metallic walls replaced by a cathedral of living architecture. Resin structures rose like pillars toward the ceiling, their surfaces glistening with moisture that carried the scent of alien pheromones. At the chamber's heart stood the Queen. She was magnificent and terrible, a fusion of organic grace and mechanical precision that spoke of evolutionary perfection, refined across countless generations. 20ft in length, her segmented body combined the fluid mobility of her children with the gravid majesty of a creature designed for one purpose, the propagation of her species. Her elongated skull bore crown-like ridges that caught the chamber's bioluminescent glow, and her forearms ended in claws that could carve through battle plate as easily as flesh. Around her, arranged in careful rows, stood the eggs, hundreds of them, each one a perfect oval of organic architecture designed to house the facehugger parasites that would ensure the species' continuation. They pulsed with their own inner light, responding to the Queen's presence with coordinated rhythms that suggested a collective consciousness beyond individual thought. The Queen's awareness fixed on the intruders with predatory focus. Her movements as she turned toward them carried the fluid grace of liquid mercury combined with the terrible inevitability of a landslide. When she opened her mouth, the inner fingal jaw extended with hydraulic precision, and her voice emerged as a sound that bypassed the ears and resonated directly in the bone. The hybrid warriors opened fire immediately, their autoguns filling the chamber with muzzle flashes and the whine of ricocheting bullets. The Queen's exoskeleton turned aside most of the rounds, their impacts producing only shallow scratches on armour evolved to withstand far greater stresses. She moved with shocking speed for something so massive, her tail lashing out to catch a hybrid warrior and lift him into the air before her inner jaw punched through his skull. The eggs responded to the violence with coordinated action. Their tops began opening like flowers, revealing the facehuggers within. These creatures emerged with single-minded purpose, their 8 fingers ready to grasp, and their tail designed to choke any resistance from their intended hosts. They moved with the fluid coordination of a pack hunter, each one seeking a victim to embrace with lethal affection. Corvus found himself separated from his squad, fighting a running battle through the resin cathedral as facehuggers swarmed around his feet, and the Queen's children emerged from hidden passages in the walls. His forearms gave him advantages in close combat, but these creatures had been designed by evolution itself for exactly this kind of warfare. Every move they made was calculated for maximum lethality, every adaptation honed by countless generations of predation. A facehugger leaped at his head, its fingers spread to embrace his skull. Corvus caught it with his upper arms, feeling the creature's incredible strength as it tried to force its ovipositor down his throat. The hybrid's enhanced physiology gave him the power to crush the parasite, but its acidic blood immediately began eating through his hands. He threw the dying creature aside and drew his sidearm, but 2 more were already in the air. The Queen's roar filled the chamber, a sound that spoke of maternal fury and territorial dominance. She swept forward, her massive form moving with liquid grace, intent on protecting her children and expanding her domain. Her claws left deep gouges in the resin floor, and her tail struck like a whip, each blow capable of shattering ceramite. Through the chaos of battle, Corvus felt something that chilled him more than the immediate threat of death. The Xenomorphs were learning. Each encounter with the cult warriors provided them with new data about their enemy's capabilities, knowledge that was instantly shared through pheromone trails and behavioral adaptation. They adjusted their tactics in real time, exploiting weaknesses and avoiding previous mistakes with a speed that suggested collective intelligence. A warrior-class xenomorph dropped from the ceiling behind him, its movements perfectly timed to catch him in a moment of vulnerability. Corvus spun and fired, but the creature had already adapted to their weapons' capabilities. It moved in patterns designed to minimize its exposure to autogun fire, its elongated skull presenting minimal target profile, while its limbs carried it in evasive patterns that seemed almost precognitive. The creature's inner jaw shot forward, missing Corvus by millimeters as he threw himself aside. Its acidic saliva splashed across his shoulder, eating through armor and flesh with equal efficiency. The hybrid warrior roared in pain and rage, emptying his magazine into the creature's torso. The xenomorph died, but its acidic blood sprayed across the chamber, eating through support structures and causing part of the ceiling to collapse. "Patriarch," Corvus transmitted, his voice tight with desperation. "The situation is untenable. We cannot contain these creatures. They adapt too quickly, learn too fast if they escape this ship." But Morgust's response carried only fascination and hunger. Through the psychic link, the patriarch was experiencing the battle through his children's senses, tasting the xenomorph's perfect predatory nature and seeing parallels to his own species' methods. These creatures represented evolution refined to its ultimate expression, life forms designed by natural selection itself for the single purpose of propagation through predation. "Continue," came the command. "Learn their ways. The star gods will be pleased with such perfect children." The order filled Corvus with horror, but the cult's conditioning ran deeper than rational thought. Even as facehuggers swarmed around his feet and warrior xenomorphs stalked him through the resin cathedral, he continued transmitting tactical data back to the Herald of Ascension. Every detail of the creature's biology, every observation of their behavioral patterns, every measurement of their adaptive capabilities flowed through the psychic link to feed his master's growing obsession. The Queen noticed the transmission, her alien intelligence recognizing the flow of information, even if she could not intercept its content. Her massive head turned toward Corvus with predatory focus, and she began moving in his direction with fluid, inevitable grace. Her children parted before her like a living tide, their movements coordinated to drive the hybrid warrior toward their mother's embrace. Corvus backed against the chamber's far wall, his ammunition exhausted and his weapons reduced to claws and fang. The Queen approached with deliberate slowness, her movement speaking of complete confidence in the outcome. When she reached him, her massive head lowered until her eyeless face was mere inches from his own. The hybrid warrior felt something impossible happen. Through the psychic link that connected all members of his species, he sensed the Queen's awareness touching the edges of his mind. Not with the familiar resonance of genestealer consciousness, but with something far older and more alien. The Xenomorph Queen possessed her own form of collective intelligence, a hive mind that connected her to every member of her species across space and time. For one terrible moment, the two hive minds touched. Morgus screamed. The psychic feedback tore through the Herald of Ascension like a neural storm, carrying with it impressions of alien intelligence so fundamentally different from genestealer consciousness that it threatened to shatter the Patriarch's sanity. Through Corv's dying mind, the cult leader experienced the Xenomorph Collective. Billions of perfect predators spread across the galaxy, each one a node in a network of predatory intelligence that spanned millennia. The Queen pulled back from the contact, her alien mind processing what she had learned. Through the brief connection, she had tasted the genestealer cult's nature, seen their purpose and their methods. More importantly, she had sensed their connection to something greater. The star gods that approached from beyond the galactic rim, hungry for worlds to devour. Her children began moving with new purpose. The eggs that lined the chamber walls pulsed with increased activity, and facehuggers emerged with hunting patterns adjusted for new prey. The Xenomorphs had learned about the approaching Tyrannid hive fleets, and their collective intelligence was already calculating how to exploit this knowledge. Corvus died with his throat torn out, but his final transmission carried more than tactical data. Through the psychic link, Morgust experienced the Xenomorph Queen's vast intelligence and felt the cold certainty of her species' purpose. These creatures were not merely perfect predators, they were evolution's answer to the question of ultimate survival. They would adapt to any environment, overcome any obstacle, and transform any threat into strength. The Herald of Ascension began to withdraw from the derelict vessel, but it was already too late. Facehuggers had infiltrated the boarding shuttles, their parasitic embrace ensuring that the xenomorph strain would spread to the cult ship. Within hours, chestbursters would emerge from infected crew members, beginning their metamorphosis into the next generation of perfect predators. Morgust felt the first stirrings of something he had not experienced in centuries, genuine fear. His stolen human memories provided fragments of ancient terrors, racial nightmares encoded in genetic memory, but nothing that compared to what he had witnessed through Corvus's dying eyes. The Xenomorphs represented something beyond the usual patterns of galactic predation. They were not content to simply hunt. They transformed the very act of reproduction into warfare. Through the cult ship's corridors, the first screams began. The infection spread with terrifying efficiency. Crew members who had seemed healthy hours before suddenly doubled over in agony as chestbursters erupted from their bodies. Each newborn xenomorph carried genetic memory of the ship's layout and crew complement, knowledge passed down through their parasitic inheritance. They moved through the vessel's passages with predatory confidence, their adaptive biology already adjusting to the ship's environment. Morgus retreated to his sanctum in the Herald of Ascension's heart, surrounding himself with his most loyal brood brothers as alarms wailed through the corridors. Through the psychic network that connected all cult members, he felt his children dying one by one, their final moments filled with terror and disbelief. The Xenomorphs were not merely killing. They were learning from each encounter, adapting their tactics in real time. A chestburster that emerged from a cult warrior's body retained fragments of the victim's memories, including knowledge of Genestealer combat techniques. Within hours, it had metamorphosed into a warrior-class xenomorph that combined its species-perfect predatory instincts with borrowed tactical knowledge. The resulting hybrid was deadlier than either parent species, a fusion of alien cunning and evolved lethality. The Patriarch's sanctum doors, reinforced ceramite blessed by generations of alien touch, began to weep acid as something attacked them from outside. The metal dissolved with surgical precision, creating entry points perfectly sized for elongated skulls and razor-sharp claws. When the barriers finally failed, the creatures that flowed through the breach moved with fluid coordination that spoke of collective intelligence. They had changed. The xenomorphs that entered the sanctum bore characteristics that neither species should have possessed. Their elongated skulls showed the distinctive ridges of their breed, but their eyes held an intelligence that seemed almost familiar. They moved with the fluid grace of their kind, but their positioning showed tactical awareness borrowed from genus combat doctrine. Morgast raised his forearms in preparation for his final battle, but the lead xenomorph did something impossible. It spoke. Patriarch, the creature said, its voice a harmonious blend of alien sibilance and stolen human inflection. We have learned much from your children. Their memories taste of distant stars and hungry gods. Tell us of the great devourer that approaches. The words struck the cult leader like physical blows. The xenomorphs had not merely consumed his warriors. They had absorbed their knowledge, their purpose, their connection to the approaching hive fleets. Through parasitic reproduction, they had gained access to Genestealer racial memory, including visions of the tyrannid swarms that moved between the stars like living darkness. You cannot comprehend what approaches, Morgus replied, his voice carrying psychic harmonics designed to dominate lesser minds. The star gods come with hunger that spans galaxies. Your perfect predation means nothing before their endless appetite. The xenomorph queen that had followed her children into the sanctum tilted her massive head in what might have been amusement. Through the brief psychic contact with Corvus, she had tasted the approaching tyrannid fleet nature and found it less threatening than the Patriarch believed. Her species had survived by adapting to any challenge evolution could present. The Great Devourer would simply provide new opportunities for growth. Your star gods hunger for biomass, she replied, her voice carrying harmonics that resonated in frequencies beyond human perception. They consume worlds to fuel their expansion across the void, but they have never encountered prey that improves through consumption. Each world they devour will teach us their weaknesses. Each creature they consume will carry our children into their flesh. The realization struck Morgus like a thunderbolt. The xenomorphs were not merely perfect predators. They were evolution's answer to the tyrannid threat. Their parasitic reproduction methods would allow them to infiltrate the hive fleets from within, turning the Great Devourer's own hunger against itself. Each tyrannid consumed by a facehugger would become a hybrid creature carrying xenomorph genetic material into the heart of the swarm. The cult ship shuddered as more sections fell to the spreading infestation. Emergency klaxons wailed through corridors filled with acid-scarred metal and the screams of the dying. The Herald of Ascension was becoming something new, its passages reshaped by resin secretions and its crew transformed into hosts for a species that viewed reproduction as warfare. Through the ship's Vox network, reports filtered in from sections that still held living defenders. The xenomorphs were not simply killing and reproducing. They were studying the vessel's systems, learning to operate Imperial technology with frightening speed. Hybrid creatures born from infected crew members retained enough human memory to understand basic ship functions, while their alien heritage provided them with intuitive understanding of biological systems. In the engine compartments, xenomorphs had begun secret-retting resin that interfaced directly with the plasma reactors. The organic material was somehow regulating the reactor's output, optimizing its efficiency in ways that suggested the creatures understood fusion physics on an instinctive level. The ship was becoming a hybrid itself, part Imperial technology and part living organism. Morg felt the walls of his sanctum beginning to pulse with alien life. The resin that seeped through cracks in the deck was not merely construction material. It was part of a vast nervous system that connected every xenomorph in the ship. Through this biological network, they shared sensory data, tactical information, and genetic memories with a speed that made Genestealer psychic communion seem sluggish by comparison. "Your vessel will serve us well," the Queen said, her massive form filling the sanctum's far wall. "Its machine spirit has accepted our touch, and its systems respond to our guidance. When we reach inhabited worlds, we will bring gifts that no defense can withstand." The Patriarch's final gambit was desperation born of religious fury. He triggered the Herald of Ascension self-destruct sequence, hoping to contain the xenomorph outbreak before it could spread beyond the ship's hull. Nuclear fire bloomed in the vessel's heart, temperatures reaching levels that should have sterilized every living thing aboard. But the xenomorphs had adapted even to this. The Queen's biology had been modified by absorbed Genusa genetic material, giving her species new resistance to radiation and extreme temperatures. The nuclear fire that should have been their death instead became a chrysalis for further evolution. When the flames died, the creatures that emerged from the Herald of Ascension's wreckage were something unprecedented in the galaxy's history. They retained the xenomorph's perfect predatory instincts, but now they carried Genestealer psychic sensitivity and Tyrannid adaptive capabilities. The hybrid strain could survive in hard vacuum, navigate by stellar magnetic fields, and reproduce through multiple vectors, including traditional facehugger implantation, psychic contamination, and direct genetic assimilation. They were evolution's answer to the question of ultimate survival, life forms designed by natural selection and enhanced by alien hybridization. The wreckage of the Herald of Ascension drifted through the void. Its hull cracked open like an egg. From the breach emerged creatures that swam through vacuum as easily as atmosphere. Their biology adapted for interstellar travel. They spread across the local system in search of new worlds, new hosts, new opportunities to expand their hybrid nature. Behind them, they left spores that would drift on stellar winds until they found suitable worlds to seed. Each spore carried the genetic template for a new hive, one that combined xenomorph predatory perfection with Genestealer infiltration techniques and Tyrannid adaptive evolution. The hybrid strain was not merely another apex predator. It was evolution's answer to the question of what came after perfection. On the derelict vessel where it all began, something stirred in the deepest chambers. The original xenomorph queen had survived the nuclear fire, her biology enhanced by absorbed genular DNA. She began laying new eggs, each one carrying the hybrid genetic template that would spread her children across the galaxy. But these eggs were different from those that came before. They pulsed with psychic energy. Word count so far, 480. The first Imperial world to encounter the hybrid strain was Tertius Majoris, a hive world on the edges of the Segmentum Solar. The planet's orbital defense platforms detected the incoming spores 3 days before impact, but their identification protocols found no match for the organic projectiles in any known Xenos classification system. The spores appeared to be simple meteorites, small rocky fragments that pose no threat to a world protected by void shields and atmosphere processes. They were catastrophically wrong. The spores struck Tertius Majoris' surface with kinetic impacts that scattered their contents across 3 continents. Each spore contained thousands of microscopic organisms designed to survive atmospheric entry and seek out suitable hosts. Unlike traditional facehugger eggs, these hybrid seeds could remain dormant for years, waiting in water supplies and food chains until the right conditions triggered their activation. The first outbreak began in Hive Sexus, deep in the Undercity, where Imperial authority rarely penetrated. A gang war over narcotic distribution routes had left dozens of bodies in the abandoned manufacturing sectors, corpses that provided perfect incubation environments for the dormant organisms. When the first chestburster erupted from a dead ganganger's torso, it carried genetic memories that included detailed knowledge of Hive City infrastructure and Imperial security protocols. Within hours, the creature had metamorphosed into something unprecedented. It retained the xenomorph's distinctive elongated skull and biomechanical appearance, but its eyes held intelligence that seemed almost human. When it spoke, using vocal cords developed from absorbed genetic material, its words carried the gutter argot of the Undercity mixed with alien sibilance. Fresh meat comes to feed the growing dark. It whispered to shadows that listened with predatory attention. The star god's children walk among us, but they know not what hunts them in return. The hybrid xenomorph began its work with methodical precision. It studied the gang war's survivors, learning their hierarchies and territorial boundaries through careful observation. Unlike its pure strain cousins, this creature understood the value of patience and infiltration. It could wait weeks between kills, allowing its presence to become urban legend rather than immediate threat. The gangers who began disappearing were those on the fringes, individuals whose absence would not trigger major investigations. They were taken alive when possible, dragged to hidden chambers deep in the hive's foundation, where facehuggers waited with parasitic embrace. Each new host provided the hybrid strain with additional human memories and cultural knowledge, building a comprehensive understanding of Imperial society. 3 weeks after the initial outbreak, hive sexist gang wars ended. Not through Imperial intervention or negotiated peace, but through complete transformation of the combatants. The surviving gangers moved with fluid coordination that spoke of collective intelligence, their eyes holding depths that seemed to reflect alien starlight. They maintained their human appearance and continued their criminal activities, but now they served purposes that extended far beyond mere profit. The hybrid strain had learned patience from absorbed human memories, understanding that Imperial society's greatest weakness was its tendency to ignore problems that remained below certain thresholds of visibility. As long as the gangs continued operating within expected parameters, no one would investigate the subtle changes in their behavior or the occasional disappearances that could be attributed to routine violence. But the creatures were not content with simple infiltration. They began expanding their influence through careful manipulation of the hive's social structures. Corrupt Arbitite officers found themselves offered bribes that came with subtle psychic compulsions, encouraging them to ignore certain sectors or redirect investigations away from sensitive areas. Guild merchants discovered that certain shipments arrived with unexpected additions, small organic pods that dissolved harmlessly into the city's water supply. The hybrid queen that coordinated this expansion had grown far beyond her pure strain origins. Fed by dozens of hosts and enhanced by absorbed genealer DNA, she had developed capabilities that allowed her to process multiple streams of sensory data simultaneously. Through her children scattered throughout the hive, she could observe thousands of potential hosts, tracking their movements and identifying the most strategically valuable targets. Her lair occupied an abandoned section of the hive's geothermal processing plant, kilometers below the surface where Imperial authority held no sway. The chamber had been modified with resin secretions that interfaced directly with the plant's machinery, allowing her to monitor the facility's output and ensure that certain chemical additives found their way into the city's atmosphere. Nothing that would trigger immediate health concerns, just trace pheromones that made the population more susceptible to psychic influence. Above her domain, Turs Majorus continued its daily routine with mounting inefficiency. Productivity reports showed declining output across multiple sectors, but the decreases fell within acceptable margins of Imperial tolerance. Workers complained of fatigue and disturbing dreams, but the hive's medical facilities attributed these symptoms to standard pollution exposure and nutritional deficiency. The truth was far more sinister. The hybrid strain's psychic emanations were slowly conditioning the population for mass implantation, preparing millions of potential hosts for the day when subtlety would no longer be necessary. Each night the dreams grew more vivid, filled with images of elongated skulls and chambers that pulsed with alien life. In the hive's administrative levels, Governor Vex noticed the irregularities. First, production quotas were being met, but resource consumption patterns had shifted in ways that suggested unauthorized industrial activity. His attempts to investigate were met with bureaucratic obfuscation that seemed almost coordinated, as if multiple departments were working together to obscure the truth. The governor's paranoia might have remained manageable if not for the arrival of Inquisitor Hilaire. The Ordo Xenos operative had been tracking anomalous warp disturbances across the sector, following a trail of psychic emanations that suggested unknown alien activity. His ship, the Righteous Fury, entered Tertius Majorus's orbit with sensors already detecting biological signatures that defied classification. The readings showed massive organic structures deep within the hive's foundation, formations that pulsed with their own electromagnetic fields. Halarek had spent 3 decades hunting Xenos threats across the Imperium's borders. He had faced Tyranid splinter fleets and purged genesteal cults from a dozen worlds. His experience told him that whatever festered in Turs Majorus's depths represented something unprecedented, a form of alien life that combined familiar elements in ways that suggested evolution beyond natural limits. "Assemble kill teams," he commanded his retinue as the Righteous Fury's auger arrays painted detailed pictures of the infestation's extent. "Full quarantine protocols. No one leaves the surface until we understand what we're dealing with. The Inquisitor's kill teams were the Imperium's finest. Space Marines from the Death Watch specialized in Xenos eradication. Adeptus Mechanicus tech marines equipped with weapons designed to cleanse alien technology, and battle sisters whose faith burned bright enough to purify even the most corrupted environments. They descended into Hive Sex's depths with confidence born of countless victories against the galaxy's horrors. They were not prepared for what awaited them. The first indication of trouble came when their Vox communications began experiencing interference. Not the random static of equipment malfunction, but organized patterns that suggested someone was actively monitoring their transmissions. The hybrid Xenomorphs had learned to interface with Imperial technology through absorbed human memories, allowing them to track the kill team's movements in real time. Brother Sergeant Castile led the first squad into the abandoned manufacturum sectors, his OPEX reading biological signatures that defied easy classification. The walls showed signs of modification with resin-like secretions forming structures that served unclear purposes. The air carried scents that bypassed human olfactory receptors and triggered responses in the primitive brainstem, pheromones designed to induce fear and confusion. "Something's watching us," reported Sister Superior Agatha, her bolt pistol sweeping corners that seemed to shift when observed peripherally. "The shadows move wrong here. They pulse." The attack came from above and below simultaneously, coordinated assault that spoke of collective intelligence. Hybrid warriors dropped from ceiling ducts while others erupted from floor grates, their movements timed to catch the kill team in devastating crossfire. These creatures retained the Xenomorphs' perfect predatory instincts, but their tactics showed knowledge of Imperial combat doctrine that could only have come from absorbed memories. Castile's bolt pistol roared, mass reactive shells detonating inside alien flesh and spraying acidic blood across the corridor walls. But the creatures seemed to anticipate his firing patterns, moving in ways that minimized their exposure while maximizing their own offensive potential. When one died, its acidic veet ate through the deck plating and created new avenues of attack for its siblings. The hybrid queen felt her children's death through the psychic network that connected them all. Each loss provided valuable tactical data about Imperial weapons and combat techniques, information that was instantly shared with surviving members of the pack. The creatures began adapting in real time, altering their approach vectors and timing their attacks to exploit weaknesses in the kill team's coordination. "They're learning," Castile reported through the Vox, his voice tight with something approaching alarm. "Each engagement makes them more effective. This is not typical Xenos behavior." But Inquisitor Halrek had suspected as much. Through his ship's sensors, he could observe the battle unfolding in the hive's depths, watching as the creatures adjusted their tactics with each passing minute. These were not mere animals driven by instinct. They possessed intelligence that suggested either extensive genetic manipulation or exposure to psychic enhancement. "Fall back to Rally Point Delta," he commanded. "Initiate cleansing protocols." The order sent a chill through the kill teams. Cleansing protocols meant orbital bombardment, nuclear purification that would sterilize the hive's depths, but kill millions of Imperial citizens in the process. It was the option of last resort, used only when containment had become impossible and the threat exceeded all acceptable parameters. But as the teams began their fighting withdrawal, they discovered that escape was no longer an option. The hybrid Xenomorphs had used the battle's duration to position themselves throughout the hive's access routes, creating a living web of predators that turned every corridor into a potential killing ground. Worse, the creatures were no longer limiting themselves to direct assault. They had begun using the hive's own infrastructure as a weapon. Sister Superior Agatha felt the deck plating buckle beneath her feet as acidic secretions ate through support structures with surgical precision. The hybrid Xenomorphs were targeting load-bearing elements, causing controlled collapses that would trap the kill teams in designated kill zones. Her power armor's machine spirits screamed warnings as environmental sensors detected atmospheric changes that suggested large-scale structural failure. "The entire sector is compromised," she reported, her voice carrying through Vox networks that crackled with alien interference. "They're not just hunting us, they're reshaping the battlefield." Brother Sergeant Castile found himself separated from his squad in a corridor that had not existed on any architectural survey. The walls pulsed with bioluminescent veins that provided just enough light to reveal the chamber's organic nature. This was not Imperial construction modified by alien secretions. It was something grown rather than built. Architecture that served biological rather than mechanical purposes. The hybrid warrior that stalked him through this living maze moved with perfect silence. Its elongated feet designed to distribute weight across the resin floor without triggering resonance. When it finally attacked, the creature's approach showed tactical knowledge that could only have come from absorbed Space Marine memories. It knew about Art's reaction times, understood the limitations of power armor joint articulation, and had calculated attack vectors that would exploit these weaknesses. Castile's chainsaw roared to life as the creature closed distance, adamantine teeth designed to carve through the hardest materials. But the hybrid Xenomorph's acidic blood turned his weapon into a liability. Each successful strike resulted in molecular damage that degraded the blade's effectiveness. Within minutes, his primary weapon had been reduced to a corroded hilt that sparked with failing power connections. The Space Marine drew his combat knife, a blessed blade that had served him for 2 centuries of warfare against the Imperium's enemies. But this creature was unlike anything in his extensive experience. It moved with the fluid grace of liquid mercury, each motion calculated for maximum lethality, while its eyeless gaze seemed to track his intentions rather than his position. When the hybrid's inner ferinal jaw shot forward, Castile barely managed to interpose his armoured forearm. The force of impact sent spiderweb cracks through ceramite plating, and he felt the creature's acidic saliva beginning to eat through the blessed adamantine. His enhanced physiology allowed him to ignore pain that would incapacitate baseline humans. But even Art's biology had limits. The creature pulled back for another strike, but something in its posture suggested it was studying him rather than simply attempting to kill. Through absorbed genestealer memories, it had access to fragmentary knowledge about Space Marine enhancement procedures and the gene seed that made such transformations possible. The hybrid strain's adaptive nature saw opportunity in this encounter, a chance to incorporate Art's genetic material into its own evolutionary matrix. Castile realized the creature's true intent and triggered the fusion charges built into his power armor's reactor housing. Better to die in nuclear fire than allow his gene seed to be corrupted by alien influence. The explosion that followed sterilized 3 levels of the hive structure, but it also provided the hybrid strain with something unprecedented: exposure to controlled fusion reactions and their biological effects. The Queen felt her child's death through the psychic network, but she also absorbed the final moment's data, detailed information about Imperial power armor systems, Space Marine biology, and most importantly the principles behind portable fusion technology. This knowledge would allow her children to develop new hunting strategies and perhaps even biological analogies to Imperial equipment. 3 levels above the fusion blast, Tech Marine Pharaohs detected the energy signature and understood its implications. Brother Sergeant Castile's sacrifice had provided valuable time, but it had also revealed the enemy's true nature. These creatures were not merely perfect predators. They were evolution accelerated beyond natural limits, capable of incorporating beneficial traits from any species they encountered. His servo skull companions painted tactical displays that showed the infestation's true extent. The biological structures detected earlier were not random growths, but carefully planned modifications to the hive's infrastructure. The hybrid Xenomorphs were turning Tertius Majoris into something unprecedented, a living weapon that could support their species while remaining invisible to casual Imperial observation. Maros Dominus Cole would find this fascinating. Feros muttered as his Auspex readings showed organic technology that rivaled Adeptus Mechanicus achievements. The creatures had somehow learned to interface biological systems with Imperial machinery, creating hybrid devices that operated on principles that challenged orthodox understanding of the machine spirit's nature. His examination was interrupted by movement in the shadows ahead. A hybrid xenomorph emerged from what appeared to be solid wall, its form flickering between visibility and perfect camouflage. This creature had developed adaptive coloration that allowed it to match any background, a trait that suggested exposure to gene stealer DNA had accelerated its evolutionary development beyond what should have been possible. The Techarine's mechanical appendages whirred to life, servo arms ending in weapons designed specifically for Xeno's eradication. Plasma cutters and molecular disruptors filled the corridor with energy discharges that should have reduced any biological entity to component atoms. But the hybrid creature moved between the beams with liquid grace, its form seeming to flow around the energy streams rather than through them. When it struck, the attack came from an impossible angle. The creature's limbs bent in ways that defied skeletal limitations, suggesting its bone structure had been modified to provide enhanced flexibility. Its claws, razor-sharp and gleaming with toxic secretions, found gaps in the Techmarine's armour that should not have existed, exploiting weaknesses that could only have been identified through detailed study of Imperial equipment specifications. Pharos felt his blessed machinery failing as acidic blood ate through sacred circuits and corroded the machine spirits that dwelt within his mechanical enhancement. His connection to the Omnissiah's blessed knowledge flickered and died, leaving him isolated in flesh that suddenly seemed terribly vulnerable. When the creature's inner jaw punched through his helmet's visor, his final transmission carried data that would chill the Inquisitor to his enhanced bones. They're not just adapting. He managed through systems failing one by one. They're improving on Imperial design. The Omnissiah preserve us all. The hybrid queen absorbed another death, another store of technical knowledge that would serve her children's expansion. Through Pharos' final moments, she had gained access to Adeptus Mechanicus engineering principles and detailed specifications for Imperial technology. This information, combined with her species' biological mastery, suggested possibilities that stretched beyond simple predation towards something far more ambitious. In the depths of her resin cathedral, new eggs began forming. These were different from those that had come before, their shells infused with metallic compounds that suggested hybrid biological mechanical systems. The facehuggers that would emerge from these containers would carry not just alien genetics, but technological integration capabilities that would allow them to interface directly with Imperial machinery. Sister Superior Agatha led the surviving members of her squad through corridors that seemed to shift and change when observed peripherally. The hive's architecture had been so thoroughly modified by alien secretions that standard navigation became impossible. Passages that appeared on architectural plans led to dead ends filled with organic growth, while new routes opened in areas that should have been solid rockcrete. Her squad's flamers had proven effective against individual creatures, but the Prometheum fuel was running low, and the enemy seemed to learn from each encounter. The hybrid Xenomorphs began approaching from angles that minimized their exposure to flame weapons, and some had developed biological adaptations that provided limited fire resistance. "They're hurting us," reported Sister Magdalene, her voice tight with controlled fear. "Every route leads deeper into the infestation zone. They want us to go where they can control the engagement." The realization struck Agatha like a physical blow. These creatures possessed tactical intelligence that rivaled Space Marine combat doctrine, but they were applying it with alien patience that allowed for multi-stage planning. The kill teams were not fighting random predators. They were engaged with a species that viewed warfare as elaborate choreography, each battle a movement in a larger composition designed to achieve specific objectives. Through her Vox link, she could hear reports from other squads. Brother Sergeant Marcus had lost 3 men to a coordinated ambush in the water reclamation facility. Tech Adept Quintus reported that his servo skulls were being systematically hunted by creatures that seemed to understand Imperial reconnaissance protocols. Even the Inquisitor's command post had detected infiltration attempts that showed knowledge of Imperial security procedures. The truth was becoming unavoidable. The hybrid strain possessed intelligence that extended beyond individual cunning toward genuine collective consciousness. Each creature served as a node in a network that processed tactical information with speed that made human military coordination seem glacial by comparison. They were not just adapting to Imperial tactics, they were improving upon them. In the deepest levels of the hive, where geothermal vents provided the energy that powered Turs Majoris' industrial complexes, the hybrid queen had begun her greatest work. The chamber she occupied had been transformed into something that challenged the boundary between biology and technology. Resin structures interfaced directly with plasma conduits, allowing her to regulate the city's power distribution while monitoring every energy fluctuation that might indicate Imperial military activity. But power management was only the beginning. Through absorbed human memories, she had learned about the hive's transportation networks, communication systems, and food distribution chains. Each infrastructure element offered opportunities for infiltration and control, that would allow her species to expand its influence without triggering immediate Imperial response. The first phase of expansion had already begun. Hybrid facehuggers carried by unwitting humans through the hives, transit systems were establishing secondary colonies in previously untouched sectors. Each new infestation point would grow into a node in the expanding network, allowing the species to spread throughout Tertus Majoris's billions of inhabitants without centralized vulnerability. Above the growing nightmare, Inquisitor Hilaire monitored the kill team's reports with mounting horror. His 3 decades of experience hunting Xenos threats provided no context for what his forces faced in the hive's depths. These creatures combined biological perfection with technological sophistication and tactical intelligence in ways that suggested they represented something beyond natural evolution. "Prep the cyclonic torpedoes," he commanded his vessel's weapons officer. "Full exterminatis authorization." The order would condemn billions of Imperial citizens to nuclear fire, but containment had clearly failed. If these hybrid xenomorphs escaped Tertus Majoris, they could spread throughout the sector and beyond. Their adaptive capabilities and infiltration techniques made them potentially more dangerous than Tyranid splinter fleets or chaos incursions. But as his ship's targeting systems locked onto the planet's surface, something impossible happened. The Hive City's defensive networks, systems that should have been under complete Imperial control, began actively jamming his weapons arrays. Sensor readings showed massive electronic interference emanating from deep within the planet's crust. Coordinated signals that suggested the hybrid strain had somehow gained access to military-grade Imperial technology. "Impossible," breathed Tech Adept Corrin as his instruments registered impossible readings. "The targeting matrix is being countered by our own defense protocols. Something down there has learned to operate Imperial systems better than we can." Through the planet's communication networks, a signal began broadcasting on frequencies reserved for highest priority Imperial transmissions. When the message resolved into audible form, it carried a voice that blended human inflection with alien harmonics in ways that suggested evolutionary fusion rather than simple mimicry. "Inquisitor Halry," the voice said, carrying undertones that resonated in frequencies below normal human perception. "Your weapons are impressive, but we have learned much from those who built them. Your choice is simple: withdraw and allow our expansion to proceed naturally, or remain and discover how your own technology serves our purposes." The transmission continued with tactical data that should have been classified beyond any possible alien access, deployment patterns for the Death Watch kill teams, technical specifications for cyclonic torpedoes, even personal information about Halrek's decades of service to the Ordo Xenos. The hybrid strain had somehow gained access to Imperial databases that existed only in the most secured Coitator networks. "This is not possible," Halrek whispered, his enhanced consciousness struggling to process the implications. "They could not have learned our system so quickly." But deep in Tertius Majoris's foundation, the hybrid queen was demonstrating capabilities that transcended her species' original nature. Through absorbed memories from Techerine pharaohs and dozens of other Imperial servants, she had gained understanding of Imperial technology that exceeded most human technical knowledge. Her biological interfaces with the hive systems allowed her to access data networks with efficiency that made mechanical systems seem crude by comparison. More disturbing still, she had begun to understand the philosophical principles that underpinned Imperial civilization. Through absorbed human memories, she had learned about the Emperor, the Warp, and the Great Crusade that had brought humanity to the stars. This knowledge suggested strategic possibilities that extended far beyond simple predation towards something that might challenge the Imperium itself. The Queen's latest eggs pulsed with energy that registered on psychic as well as biological senses. These containers would birth creatures designed not for simple parasitic reproduction, but for infiltration of the highest levels of Imperial society. Facehuggers that could remain dormant for years, waiting for optimal targets. Hybrid xenomorphs that could pass for human long enough to reach positions of authority and influence. And in the deepest chambers of her domain, she had begun work on something unprecedented. Eggs designed to gestate within psychers, creating hybrid xenomorphs with direct access to the warp itself. The possibilities such creatures might possess challenged every assumption about the boundaries between biological evolution and psychic development. As the first of these psychic hybrids began their metamorphosis in chambers that pulsed with warp energy, something far from Tersus Majoris took notice. The Tyranid of Fleet Behemoth, drifting in the void beyond the galactic rim, felt disturbances in the psychic networks that connected all living things. Through senses that perceived reality as patterns of biological information, the Great Devourer detected the emergence of something unprecedented. A hybrid species that combined familiar genetic templates in ways that suggested evolutionary advancement beyond natural limits. The hive mind's vast intelligence began calculating new approaches to the galaxy that lay ahead. If these hybrid creatures represented a new form of perfectly adapted predator, they might serve the hive fleet purposes better than simple consumption. They could be integrated, improved, transformed into specialized biological weapons designed for purposes the Tyranids had never before contemplated. Across the galactic void, tendrils of the hive fleet began changing course toward the Terti system. In the depths of the warp, other intelligences stirred with interest. The Chaos Gods felt the hybrid Xenomorphs' psychic emanations and recognized opportunities for corruption and manipulation that had never before existed. Creatures that combined biological perfection with technological integration and psychic sensitivity offered possibilities for demonic possession that transcended traditional limitations. Sench, god of change and manipulation, found particular fascination in the species' adaptive nature. Their ability to incorporate beneficial traits from other life forms suggested they might serve as vessels for mutations that could spread throughout the galaxy, carrying the touch of chaos to worlds that had never known the Dark God's influence. Nurgle, patron of decay and rebirth, saw different possibilities in the creature's parasitic reproduction methods. Their facehuggers could carry plagues and biological modifications that would transform entire populations into something new, something that served the god of entropy's vision of cosmic renewal through corruption. But it was Slaanesh who felt the greatest hunger for these perfect predators. Their combination of biological excellence and adaptive intelligence represented the kind of sensory and intellectual sophistication that the god of excess found irresistible. The hybrid Xenomorphs' pursuit of evolutionary perfection aligned with Slaanesh's philosophy of transcendence through sensation and experience. And in the deepest reaches of the warp, where the great game played out across dimensions beyond mortal comprehension, Khorne felt stirrings of approval. These creatures were war-made manifest, evolution refined to its most lethal expression. They would bring slaughter on a scale that would feed the blood god's eternal hunger for conflict and death. The galaxy shuddered as cosmic forces began converging on the Tertia system, drawn by the emergence of the hybrid Xenomorphs like predators scenting blood. The Imperium, the Tyranids, and the powers of chaos all recognized the potential these creatures represented, and each faction began preparing for a struggle that would determine whether humanity's greatest nightmare would serve the Emperor, the hive mind, or the Dark Gods. But in the depths of Terce Majoris, the hybrid queen continued her work with patient confidence. She had absorbed enough human memory to understand the forces arrayed against her species, but she had also inherited something more valuable: the knowledge of how these great powers had been defeated or stalemated in the past. The Imperium's bureaucratic inefficiency, the Tyranids' reliance on biomass consumption, the Chaos God's tendency toward intrascene conflict. Each weakness offered opportunities for exploitation that could allow her children to not merely survive but prosper in a galaxy that had never faced predators quite like them. The hybrid Xenomorphs would not simply adapt to the cosmic horror that surrounded them. They would improve upon it, taking the best elements of every threat and incorporating them into something unprecedented. As psychic storms began gathering around the Terre system and warp signatures indicated the approach of forces beyond human comprehension, the Queen laid her final egg. This one was different from all others, its shell infused with materials that existed only in theoretical physics, substances that bridged the gap between matter and energy, between biology and pure thought. The creature that would emerge from this ultimate container would be evolution's answer to gods and monsters alike. A fusion of every advantage the hybrid strain had discovered, combined with adaptations designed specifically for warfare against cosmic entities. It would be the herald of a new age, one where perfect predators ruled not just worlds, but the space between stars. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when evolution itself became a weapon.